Just a quick case study, not of heart disease, but Mark Ramirez is a friend of mine back in Michigan. He's an executive with a phone company, big job, flies all over the country. He was at University of Michigan on a Rose Bowl team, Big Ten champ, 1986 in his freshman year with Jim Harbaugh, now our coach at Ann Arbor. Stayed there 4 years, and within about 10 years after that, and I think I have a picture. Let me see. Yep. He had a family, he had kids, and he had about 80 extra pounds that he didn't have because he wasn't training 5 hours a day like he had during his undergraduate years. His big fear came true, which was he was a Latino family that was rich in diabetes, adult diabetes. There's a very high incidence of adult diabetes in Latino populations, very high incidence in all populations. But his mother had acquired the need for dialysis due to diabetes. He had a brother that had a heart attack. His sister had lost eyesight due to diabetes. And about age 35, he was diagnosed and was frightened. But when you don't know anything else, you take your pills and you poke your finger, and ultimately he took his insulin. But it turned out about 5 years ago, he was handed by a friend a copy of Forks Over Knives. Again, just happened to be the story. And he looked at it with his wife Kim and said, you know, this is crazy. And then he found out about other programs that are science-based and published but are available to the public, like Dr. Neil Bernard's Reversing Diabetes program, available in books and DVDs and online, and embraced it, and within 3 months was off of all medicine, and within about 6 to 12 months had dropped a significant amount of weight. That was just approaching 5 years ago. I was with him Thursday night on a TV show, and he's fired up and motivated, teaches as many people as possible that, you know, for some, adult diabetes is modifiable. For some, it's reversible. There are ex-diabetics that will no longer suffer from neuropathy and retinopathy and kidney disease, nephropathy, and be at risk of premature coronary disease and stroke and all the rest. Phenomenal to realize the power. But is it taught in hospitals? Is it taught in clinics? Is it part of the program? Almost everybody I know in patient examples that have done this on their own and had to bring their internist or their endocrinologist a copy of a book or a DVD or some other information that they got through the alternative health world. You know, if you want to speak about this, although it's in the peer-reviewed literature, it's just there is not going to be a pharmaceutical rep coming in and presenting the idea that diet and lifestyle. It'll be incredible if we could develop lifestyle reps that had some financial support to come to offices and bring doctors healthy lunches and educate them about the benefit to their patients. Never thought of that before, but I think that actually could solve the gap if there was just some way to tie it in with insurers or hospitals that could actually fund it. So coming to a close of this idea about cardiology and diet and all, some of you may know this or not, but another good friend of mine, Dr. Kim Williams, a cardiologist who was in Detroit for years, now he's in Chicago, is the head of Department of Medicine in Northwestern. But as you have read, you know, his synthesis during just last year, he was president of the American College of Cardiology, kind of the central group that overlooks many policies. And although he couldn't convert them in a year to acknowledge that plant-based nutrition should be up there with aspirin, statins, and other therapies, he certainly made inroads. He did a ton of interviews and led to this quote: there's either vegan cardiologists or those who haven't read the data. I will say, I'm going to change gears in a minute. I didn't introduce myself formally, but you know, my story in a nutshell, I grew up in a kosher home in Detroit. It was not plant-based. We made goulash and whatever, but I didn't eat ham and cheese and cheeseburgers. There always was that 1 second pause that what I'm about to eat, does it meet what I'm been taught and raised to eat, or is it not? And you know, it was a bit of a mindfulness about it. Went up to Ann Arbor in 1977 as an undergrad, walked into the cafeteria, and it literally took 2 minutes to become a vegetarian. I looked around, and half of me was saying, what's kosher, not what's kosher. The other half was saying, this stuff looks horrible, and the salad bar at least has a few colors that I can recognize. It's not gray. And since 1977, I've been either, you know, partially or 100% plant-based. It's been about 30 years now. I could say vegan. That's right. I could give kudos to a book by John Robbins called A Diet for a New America I read in the 1980s. I was now a cardiology fellow 10 years into my cardiology training, or medicine training, never heard a word of nutrition like everybody knows. There's still to this day, you can become a board-certified cardiologist. There's not 1 hour of nutritional training required to become a board-certified cardiologist. And then in 1990, which is when I had my first practice out of training, 3 weeks after I started is when Dr. Dean Ornish published that first paper of prominence. And I don't know why, it hit me like a lightning bolt. And I just figured when I have people on the cath lab table, when they're having a heart attack and I got a needle in their groin, that'd be a really good time to talk to them about nutrition. Because, if they started giving me any grief, so it's been really, looking for resources, and there's many more resources now, but they're still largely unknown to the medical community. Meetings of plant-based physicians, of which there's way too few in this country, but it's getting better. It's just at a pace that's very slow. It was on my introductory slide. I didn't make a big deal about it, but I got so fired up about all this that about a year ago, my son and I opened the largest plant-based restaurant between New York and LA in Detroit called Green Space Cafe. It's non-GMO. It's 140 seat. We got a bar. It really looks like a hip warehouse loft in Soho or something, and the Detroit community has responded very positively to it. It's an insane thing to do. I work during the day and I come home from the bar about midnight, but people are so happy and so grateful. The food's very high quality, so I'm fully committed to this as a path that you see little lights everywhere nowadays, but we need to coalesce them more and more. So I actually put a controversial name on a slide. What you find at the end of your fork is more powerful than anything you'll find at the bottom of a pill bottle by the author of Eat Fat, Get Thin. But Dr. Hyman is a friend of mine and has many bright ideas.